Keep your tissues handy and break out the Haagen-Dazs. On a special Valentine's Day episode of Cinema Talk, we'll be talking about the importance of emotions in film. What movies made us cry and what movies tried to but failed. The answers will be revealed here on Cinema Talk. And now please, quiet on the set. Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of Cinema Talk, Movie Talk for college movie fans. I'm your host Ayinde, and I have two new guests on the show. First, one of my friends, MaryBeth Killian. How are you doing?
Hi, hello. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And then right across from me is another friend of mine, someone I share a class with, Angela Tolomei. Can I call you Angie?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome.
What's going on?
All right, so thank you guys for being on this show. Valentine's Day is on Friday, so we got a little bit of talking about emotions and stuff and all the lovey-dovey things. But first, as always, we're going to talk about the box office. We go over it every weekend. This weekend was a bit shocking. Number one, of course, is Birds of Prey, or The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. That is such a long title. Coming into the weekend, this was going to be a big weekend. Estimates were in the $45 to $55 million range. Birds of Prey clocked in at $33.25 million in its opening weekend. It's the lowest grossing DC Universe opening film of all time. Second is Bad Boys for Life at $12 million the weekend. Over $166 million domestically, which is really good for that film. 1917 enjoying that Academy Award boost with a $9 million weekend, sitting at $132.5 million. Doolittle grossing $6.66 million. And it's still expected to lose at least 50 to 70 million. And then finally, at fifth, Jumanji: The Next Level, $5.5 million, and grossing over $768 million worldwide, comparing to its predecessor, which was in the 800s. But really, the big story is Birds of Prey falling so far from studio expectations. I don't know what any of the variables could have been. Maybe it could have just been the title, because we'll get into one of the stories where the title very much could make a difference, but that's just weird.
That's wild, especially for like the following that like I feel like superhero and supervillain movies like have. That's wild.
I'm so far removed from superhero, Marvel, DC. I know nothing, but I will tell you from the previews that I have seen, and like, there's a way to like appreciate the artistic quality of like some of them. Like some of them I think are really intriguing, and like, you know, like The Dark Knight's like a really good film, and like I appreciate that. But like I really am so far out. But like even the preview for Birds of Prey, I was like, oh, no one can see my face. I was like, oh, okay, this preview is still going on. Like, I mean, I'm not familiar with the characters. I didn't see Suicide Squad. I really don't know, but I just, like, couldn't take the trailer.
Yeah.
Right. That's sort of one of my biggest gripes was watching the trailer. I was like, okay, I'm out. Yeah. I'm gonna pass on this one, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, and you know, it's going to hurt a lot when it's box office because it has to break $300 million worldwide to break even.
Wow.
And so it's got some ways to go.
That's wild. So
now we have our movie news roundup. I picked out a couple stories to talk about, and then we'll just give our thoughts. First one, an elementary school was fined a licensing fee by Movie License USA for showing the film The Lion King. Disney CEO Bob Iger apologized on Twitter and then pledged to donate to the school's fundraising initiative. Is this Disney being really greedy?
Oh, man.
Okay, so question, the fundraising, like contributing to the fundraising,
right?
Is it the fundraising to pay the fine?
Yeah.
I have no idea. He just said the fundraising, period.
Just
drop it.
You can do that.
Also, like, when has this become such an issue of, like, showing movies for classrooms? Because like I remember being like back in the day, like daycare or like elementary school, just chilling watching Lion King all the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
And now it's such a big deal.
What had happened was that the school I believe, was holding like a fundraising event, and they were showing The Lion King.
Oh, so they were benefiting.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand.
That's
that's problematic.
Yeah.
But also Disney. I know you're not listening, but you don't need any more money.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Fine.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, listen, you guys literally bought everything. You don't need to take the school's money. Like you have it all. You're gonna make money this summer.
This
Come
isn't
on.
hurting them
Yeah, they're
whatsoever.
10.
And we're gonna get into another story about money. This one I was shocked when I found this story out. So we all know Wolf of Wall Street, the movie that Leonardo DiCaprio should have won Best Actor for, but I digress. So one of the production companies that made Wolf of Wall Street is being sued by Jordan Belfort for embezzlement of money from a Malaysian state-run development fund. So they literally stole money to help with the production costs for Wolf of Wall Street.
That's
what?
Wild. Yeah. That's just, oh man, that just goes with the whole theme. Like,
Yeah.
I was 120%. Just hearing that story, I was like, I mean, it makes sense, but like, wow, did not expect that. I need to talk about this.
So we're like years out from that film.
Yeah,
We're years out from that
I was
film.
about to say, how did that come like back? Like,
I have no idea.
Embezzlement catches up with you kids.
All right, and then moving on to our next one. I know, Angie, you said you're still a little far removed from this sort of sphere, but I do want to talk about, because this is very recent news, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The hunt for a director has been going on for a couple months now, and now we may have seen a hiring in Sam Raimi of Evil Dead fame. He is now in talks of directing the sequel to Doctor Strange after Scott Derrickson had left due to creative differences with the producer Kevin Feige. I think this is a great move. If you know Sam Raimi, like the Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness, he really knows how to capture like horror, but also in a fun, inventive kind of way. Like the Evil Dead movies are very, very creative when it comes to like its scares and violence. So I feel like if this is a really good fit.
He did Drag Me to Hell too, right?
I think he did.
interesting.
Maybe this will be a new take.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch this one.
I'm like, yeah, Doctor Strange is actually my favorite, like, of all of the, like, Marvel movies. So that's funny that they got, like, a horror, like, guy for this movie.
I've been seeing a lot of responses online, and they're making all the connections because Sam Raimi also, on top of doing Evil Dead, this isn't his first Marvel film. He did all the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire.
Oh!
So arguably, this universe in film is what it is because of him.
Wow.
Everything is connected.
That's
Tobey Maguire doing?
I have no. What is he doing? And then finally, we were just talking about Birds of Prey. Changed its title now. It went from being Birds of Prey or The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn to now being called Harley Quinn Birds of Prey. According to Warner Brothers, it's for search engine optimization, and theaters are gonna start using that title more for the film, and in hopes to sort of save the film financially. I don't know if it's going to. I think there's a bigger, more broader problem with the film, and that is with its marketing. Because like if you think about it, you got 2 trailers, and that's about it.
Yeah. I was about to say, I feel like I've heard people talk about Birds of Prey, but like I haven't seen the trailer, so like I didn't even realize it was a Harley Quinn.
I saw it in theaters when I went to the movies in January.
Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, oh, there's another one?
Yeah.
So
That's wild.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because Margot Robbie is such a talented actress, and you think she would have this immense amount of pool.
And she was so much, and she raved about how much she loves this character.
Yeah.
So it's like, it kind of hurts, because I love Margot Robbie's portrayal of Harley Quinn. And I like the characters in this film. Like, I like Black Canary, and I like the character of Black Mask. So I was like, I should want to see this, but then I just kind of, it fell by the wayside. And then,
I'm sure there's also a time, like, when you're coming off of the high of Oscar season, you like want to keep going, and then it's like when something doesn't really like hit you deep in your soul, almost you're like, I have to go to the theaters and see this. You almost just like it negates everything, like other feeling that you would have towards it. So I'm sure that's a factor too, or maybe they should have waited.
Exactly. Like I think timing wise definitely had a part to play in it.
February has always been a really tough month for movies. I think some of the very notable exceptions to that rule. 50 Shades, Deadpool, and Black Panther all really benefited from the February release date. But then you also have this weekend Sonic the Hedgehog's coming out, and that's a family movie for kids. You know, you got it. And remember, Birds of Prey is an R-rated film, so you're already have audiences already going to be pulled away because of that rating. So who knows, man? I hope it does well, because there's supposed to be a sequel, so fingers crossed, right? So now we're going to get to the big topic of the show. We're going to be talking about movies and emotional moments in movies. So I'm going to open up by talking about some of our most emotional moments just in general. And if anybody you want, you can start however.
Oh, I love emotions.
I love my favorite kind of emotional films are, like, not necessarily the ones that make me break down and cry, which, like, if I contradict myself later, whatever. I love movies that give me, like, face chills, where, like, I'm just, like, swelling with emotion. Like, those are my favorite.
Yeah.
Those are, like, the best.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So, those are the ones I tend to gear towards, but obviously also, like, that idea of, like, that raw emotion, where, like, if something really makes you cry, it's just, like, whoa. Like, I can't believe I actually, like something did that to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
this
kind of relationships.
Like this movie barrier, like, broke me down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, like, that actually brought up something that I wanted to discuss a little bit later on. Like, when we have those conversations about emotional moments in movies, everyone talks about, oh, this movie made me cry and stuff. Like, they don't talk about anything else, because movies give you other emotions. Like,
Absolutely,
it's just the sad things are just so easy to
stick with you.
Yeah, it's so easy to remember. Yeah. And
I don't know, because I feel like I'm the exact opposite. Like, some of the sad moments, I'm like, yes, there are a couple ones where I can think of where I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember bawling my eyes out. But there are moments that I remember are, like, in horror movies where I literally felt, like, a sense of, like, terror.
Yeah.
Or, like, in an action movie where I'm like, I feel this, like, adrenaline pumping.
Yeah, adrenaline pumping, too, where you're, like, with the character. Like, you were so there with them.
Yeah.
The most recent time I felt that was when I saw 1917. And, like, I'm sure that attributes to the cinematography. But, like, that feeling of, like, your heart, like, you can actually feel your heart racing at the same rate the characters is racing. That's, like, such a powerful thing that sticks with me too. And makes me want to see something again.
Yeah, I feel like thrillers should, like, be, like, those kinds of emotional movies, because it just gets your blood pumping like that, and it's just wild. I remember watching The Quiet Place, or A Quiet Place, and that was crazy.
And it puts that thought in your head that, like, you also have to be, like,
super silent.
You really have to keep your breath in and everything.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, I was actually about to bring that up. Not just A Quiet Place. I also saw Don't Breathe, which is a Fede Alvarez film. He did the remake of Evil Dead, and it's almost the exact same premise. There's this blind guy, and there's a couple people going into his house, and they're trying to get out the house, and not making any sounds. And there are moments in the film where there's the person on the wall, and he's walking through the hallway. I'm just like, please don't say anything. I'm clutching the seats right next to me. It's like those kind of feelings I don't usually get in a lot of horror movies, because all of them feel really the same now. But, like, getting those kind of raw, like, tension, like, I'm like, I can't move, I can't speak, don't say a word. Those are the kind of emotional moments that I think people tend to, like, sort of omit when we talk about those. But I mean, even with the sad ones, there's so many you can.
And then also, like, I was thinking about this earlier today when I was coming here, and I was thinking about those like how, like, everybody perceives things differently, and, like, different relationships tear them up differently. Like, I still haven't seen Lady Bird, like, because I can't bring myself to address those kinds of conflicts and topics without, like, having a total, like, just emotional break. Like, I know it would rip me apart, for, like, personal reasons, but then at the same time, like, Interstellar destroyed me. Like, I had to stop watching Interstellar and come back to it because I have such a close relationship with my dad. And when oh god, I can't remember the daughter's name, but when she's running after the truck after she, like, told him to get out, and he's crying and she's crying and everybody's crying, I just, like, had to stop the film because I couldn't handle the separation anxiety it was causing.
Yeah, I felt the exact. We watched for one of our class, our history motion picture class. We watched Imitation of Life, and I had talked to our professor, who was actually on one of the episodes. We was talking to him about Annie, and sort of how much she reminded me of my own mother. And so when she had, at the end of the film, spoilers if you haven't seen Imitation of Life, you should. When she passes away, it felt like there was a piece of me that was gone, because it felt like I lost my mom, and I was like, I literally had a breakdown while we were watching it, and I was like, oh, I need to try to get my emotions in check because I'm in public.
Yeah.
But like, I also don't think it's I don't think it's cool to be able to chastise people for getting emotional. I remember, this is a personal story. In the summer when I went to see, of course I have to talk about Avengers Endgame because I mean, if you know me, then you know.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing when Tony Stark passed away, when he dies. It was like a childhood hero like he died.
Yeah.
And so like seeing this journey, because I was with him since day one. When Iron Man 1 came out, I remember seeing it at the drive-in theater with my entire family.
Wow.
And then here we are 11 years later. It felt like a more emotional attachment because I grew up with this person. And then people were like, oh wow, you cried over this movie? I'm like, wow, that's whack. Why would you do that? I'm like, I grew up with this character. It feels more personal to me than. And I don't think it's really cool for anybody to sort of be like, hey, don't be crying over movies, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like crying just in general, like, movies aside, is just seen as such, like, a bad thing for some reason.
Yeah, you should if a film breaks you down, you should celebrate.
Yeah, like,
celebrate that film.
That is A-okay if you, like, had that, like, emotional response. And also, like, that is the end of an era for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think it's completely understandable.
Definitely is. And then, like, even, like, film by film, like, even if you're not attached to, like, a franchise, like, film by film, like, the way movies resonate with us is, like, the power that they have. And, you know, there's a reason why Martin Scorsese's quote about, like, the most creative is the most personal, or if it's the other way around, is because it's true. Because you can really hone into those raw emotions and use them to your advantage.
Yeah.
And also express them at the same time.
Yeah.
And, like, get a great film solely from that, like, as a foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't judge anybody for crying during Titanic, but like, listen, I know me and my roommate Justin, we're at bat about that movie, and I do acquiesce to the fact that I rewatched it last spring, and it kind of hit me a little bit more differently.
Yeah.
And like it
The older you get.
That's what I was about to say. Like, another example, Les Mis. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, I just really like the songs, except for Russell Crowe. And try again, but
Yeah, we're all
yeah.
try again, Russell Crowe.
Oh, Les Mis.
I like you as an actor. Stick to acting. And I watched it again, just me and a friend of mine, and I don't know what it was about the end of that movie. I was so moved, and I was like, I'm feeling myself crying. I'm like, where did these feelings come from? Because I haven't cried at this movie before.
That was like, so Ayinde and I, MaryBeth, had the music and film, the film scoring class, excuse me, together last semester, and we watched E.T. And when I was
So
little,
cute.
I couldn't even go into like Target or anywhere, like, and see, like, you know, there's like E.T. stuffed animals.
Yeah,
or whatever.
like the dolls.
I would freak out. I would get so afraid. Like, I couldn't watch E.T. I watched it
Aw.
once when I was really young.
Yeah.
We watched it last semester. And we watched the scene where all the friends are biking away from everybody to get them to the mothership.
Yeah.
And I'm in that class just like tears
Bawling.
running down my face. And I'm like, does this mean like I've matured as an adult? And I'm like sobbing over how beautiful E.T. is. Like, I think that's like, you should always watch a film more than once. But like, just like the idea that like how you change as a person and as an individual, not even like through identity or age, like that affects emotions in movies so much.
It just shows like your growth too. Yeah. And also on that too, I think movies can help incorporate growth at the same time. For example, personal story for me, I remember this might sound dumb, but I remember going to see Wreck-It Ralph 2 with one of my best friends at the time. But it was like weird because like it was one of those friendships that I felt like we hadn't like actually like connected in a while. Like I definitely saw her as my best friend, but I was like, I just miss you even though you're here in the same room. And Wreck-It Ralph 2 is all about how friendships change and how, like, it's okay if friendships change and people are in different seasons. And we walked out of that theater bawling our eyes out. And it, like, helped grow our friendship.
So
yeah, like, it helped grow our friendship so much. And now we're like, you'll always be my hero. Shout out to Megan. Love you. And so, yeah, movies just help you grow in a lot of ways. Either, like, just showing you how much you've grown or help you grow in that way.
Yeah, so one of the questions I wanted to ask is that we talked about a lot of these emotional moments in these movies. I think we can all agree a lot of these movies that we're talking about pretty good. Good, if not some of our favorites. Is there a way that you can have a movie that's very emotional, but also be really, really bad?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, and for another question to sort of consider is, like, does a film's emotional resonance make a movie a good movie?
Interesting.
And I think that's a question a lot of people, like myself included, I debate with my friend from back home a lot about this. And he says no. And I said, you could make the argument that some of them maybe. Because if a movie makes you emotional, if it gets you invested, I think that means that the movie did its job, and I think it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I can understand arguments that say, hey, you know, just because a movie's emotional doesn't mean it's good. It could still be really bad.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is like separating the whole, like, do I like it? Yes or no, but like, did it do its job?
Right.
Like, I think a movie is good if it does its job, whether or not you per se like it or not.
Yeah. There's so many movies out there that we get so emotionally invested in, but the characters are, like, not likable. We don't really care what happens to them, but, like, it still touches us in some way.
It's weird, because I've never really thought about this question until I saw, what was it? I saw this movie one time, Captain Marvel. I watched Captain Marvel for the first time. And it's the Brie Larson one. And I saw it. First time I saw it, I was in Hollywood. I went to the Disney Theater in Hollywood. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, wow, I got really emotional. Like, the themes, even though I'm not a woman, I feel like those themes hit me really, you know, they hit pretty close to home. Then I went back and thought about the movie again. I was like, wait, did I really like this movie? Because this didn't seem right. The tone something about this didn't seem right. I didn't like this. And I'm like, I just broke the entire movie down. But I'm like, those themes, though, woman or not, like, those themes really are they resonate very well, and especially well if you're a woman.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like a lot of people are having that same reaction to, I have a lot of children's movies I watch, but they're having that same reaction to Frozen 2, because, like, I've heard so many people go in and be like, oh my gosh, it's so good, but then, like, when they leave and actually think about it, they're like, was that good? Like,
that nostalgic aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, listen, I love Rocky. I say it all the time. People
it's great.
Love
Rocky.
I live for the Rocky franchise. And, like, the first one, like Rocky itself, when he knocks Apollo down for the first time, chills, like, all over my body. And it's so, like, I cry at the end.
Yeah.
Is Rocky 2 good? No. Did it make me really emotional? Yeah! And, like, that continues, like, that's a theme through the whole franchise. And then, like, at the end of Creed 2, how many times have I seen it? I cry every time. Because Rocky puts his hat on, like, it's the end of an era. But, like, if I were to just, like, watch the Creed movies, they wouldn't resonate as emotionally with me if I wasn't so goddamn attached to Rocky. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but, like, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like,
right. That's I think that's the thing with sports movies, that they feed off of that. Like, we were talking about Rocky. Like, I love Rocky 4. Rocky 4 is great.
Rocky 4 ended the Cold War.
You know, Rocky 4 is great. So when he's doing that training, like the side to side training sequences, I'm like, I want to go into the gym and do that. I want to get as buff as Sylvester
Stallone's. The one moment you're
Fight
motivated to go to the gym,
But then when I watched the movie again, and I was like, you know, this movie's really cheesy. This is very emblematic of its time. But man, do I still want to go into the gym and get buff.
Exactly.
That's so funny. That makes me think, like, I feel like, I know this happens a lot in theater, Angie.
Okay.
Of, like, is it like a actor play or like a story play? And so I'm wondering if it's the same for movies, if it's like a character like movie per se, like the Rocky films, like you said it yourself, like Rocky 2, but like because it's Rocky, it makes it cool. Exactly. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering if that has like a part to play.
Maybe. Oh, that's very interesting. I never thought about that. Giving a recent example, I think people are having many mixed emotions about how Joker and sort of the way. I mean, when I walked out of the movie, like, I don't know if this is like anybody else, but like, you ever have that laugh that you do when you walk out of a really good movie? You have like a good chuckle or something.
Yeah, there's like a pep in your step. Like, literally.
You
know what you saw.
Yeah.
I was like I couldn't. I was laughing for like a good 3 to 5 minutes after this movie. I had such. It was like. It's riveting. I'll explain it on Friday because I'm doing a presentation on it on Friday.
Oh, on Friday?
Yeah.
That movie, have you ever seen that movie? That's like
No.
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm not ready for the emotional toll. I sense a theme.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Individualism.
That was actually really good. I remember going into it and being like, I don't know anything about this franchise, but like it was.
I think that's
good.
the film though to like that really is the one that stands on its own. Like
Yeah.
from what I can.
Yeah, you don't
gather.
You don't need to know. You literally need to know. You can know nothing about Batman and still watch this movie and be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I sense the themes and everything. But going back to the point, like I've been having a lot of conversations where people say, oh no, this movie's awful, and some people are like, oh, this movie's great, and like myself included. But people were having different emotional reactions. The media has had its own reaction to it. So it's just like there's been. I don't know. It's just really weird because it is a character study. It's the looking at the mind of one person and sort of his descent into quote unquote madness.
Yeah.
Turning him from an innocent man into what we know as the Clown Prince of Crime. But also, it is sort of kind of plot driven, but it's more or less a character study. So I mean, that was interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I know that's something that happens in like plays and theater a lot, and
it is something that can like get performances into quote trouble as well, as in like you can obviously tell that like the director and the actors are very much like this is about you and this is about the character that you can bring instead of about the story that you're telling. And I think there's like a really big difference there where you can actually tell the levels of emotion through the understanding.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting. We talked about this today because we're talking about Psycho in our film class.
Ooh.
And I brought up the point of how, you know, so many of these things that we discussed, like, as, like, what questions do we have about any of these films or anything, but it's, like, the amount of, like, questions and answers between a director and an actor that happen off screen to get the result you want on screen is the same exact way it happens for the stage.
Yeah.
Where a director says, you don't have to tell me this answer right now, but you gotta think about it and make a decision, and you don't have to tell anybody, but you need it to drive your character.
Yeah.
And how those kinds of things that are, like, so, like, sub-level to what we see on the screen actually have the biggest emotional effect. And, like, how do you draw those things together to get a worthwhile picture that's emotional?
Yeah.
Wow. My third eye has been opened. I've experienced tranquility. Oh, no, trust me. I'll keep that in mind.
Awesome.
Is there anything else you guys want to bring up? Like, because this topic is very, very, it's large, and I know it's trying to fill in. It's a conversation that you can have for hours. But just one of the big thing I did want to talk about was that second question. I think we hit that. Why do we go immediately to sad moments? From now on, when we talk about emotional moments, talk about all of them. Any moment that makes you get your blood pumping. I know we talk about Endgame. The part where all the heroes get back together in that one big fight after when Captain America finally says Avengers Assemble, I had a cow. My theater was in it was
theaters have never seen us pure of joy in that moment.
It was like a concert. That's how loud it was.
That's awesome.
That's wild.
What an experience.
I know, and those are the kind of experiences that you want in your movies. Even the ones that are very sophisticated, you know, even movies like The Irishman. I don't even know if you can consider that a sophisticated. I mean, it's Scorsese, but you know,
that's a conversation.
That's another conversation for another time. I'm still shocked that movie walked away with nothing.
Well, it's no Goodfellas.
It is not. Yeah, absolutely correct. It ain't Goodfellas. But yeah, those moments, the moments that get your blood pumping, the moment that like you get chills, like those are all. You should always consider all of those when you talk about emotional moments, not just the sad ones. Although the sad ones are very important.
And the emotions too that like at the end of films where you're like, oh no, I feel this way, but after what I've viewed for 2 hours, I feel like I'm not supposed to feel this way. Like, we've been talking about Midsommar a lot recently.
Yes.
But how, if you haven't seen Midsommar, turn this off, go watch it, and come back. But, like, at the end, after, like, everybody's dead, basically, and she's left being the May Queen of this cult.
Yeah.
And she, like, is doing that famous Florence Pugh frown, and then she smiles. And I'm like, I'm happy for her. And I'm like, oh no.
Should I be?
Right. You have to like grapple with why you feel the way you do. And it leads you to this like new understanding of a film. Like emotions are complex, man.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, I remember when I saw it, I was like, I shouldn't be like good for you because that's awful, but good for you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so now to close this off, I have what's called like the reshoot segments. Like, you know how some films will go back and do a couple reshoots, some little moments to sort of tweak. This is just one question, sort of just to pose to close out the show. Valentine's Day is on Friday. If by the time you listen to this, Valentine's Day would have passed. But what is the worst Valentine's Day movie?
Do I even know any Valentine's?
That was my issue.
I always just think about Affair to Remember and like Sleepless in Seattle.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think for me, Valentine's Day movies are like any romantic movie, and personally, this is the tea. I don't want to be sad on Valentine's Day, like whether or not I have a boyfriend or not. Like that's the tea. And so I think my answer would be Titanic. I know that's going to be like a big, huge thing of like people love that movie and whatnot, but I just would not choose to watch that on Valentine's Day.
I always cry during Titanic because I think about like what if I was on there and I had to get separated from my dad. Like,
I would stop. I can't think about it. I can't unsee it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sad.
I don't want to be sad. I want to enjoy my time.
Forget that it's not a day. Like, I just want to like forget it. Like it's February 14th. Like, I don't know. Just like any like romance. That's just because it's the connotation now.
Yeah.
Really? Honestly? So, first, I did not invite you guys. You guys are my friends. You guys are my friends, and I was telling my friend Justin, like, Angie, she knows her stuff. So I was like, oh no, there is no way I am not going to pass up on this. She has to be on this show.
She has opinions.
It's like she has to be on this show. But when it comes to Valentine's Day movies, I usually, if you thinking about romance movies, but also movies that just happen to be released on Valentine's Day. And in that, My Bloody Valentine, it's a horror movie. Yeah. I don't want to watch horror movies on Valentine's Day, especially like really, really gory horror movies. Different kind of tone. That's what you save that for Halloween.
Yeah.
That's when you want to get right.
Yeah.
Also, I can also consider maybe Deadpool because it's not really even though it came out on Valentine's Day, it's a superhero movie. It's very crass, very vulgar, and as much as I do love Ryan Reynolds and he's hilarious, and I can't wait to see the new movie he's gonna be coming out with. I think it's called Free Guy, where he's an NPC in a this video game, and he sort of just starts taking control of his own life. He's hilarious. He always has great comedic timing. This is not a movie you should watch on Valentine's Day. Same thing with any other horror movie. Thank you. Stick to the safe bets.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I know even though I don't got a Valentine, but dang it, I'm watching The Proposal.
Nice.
I've been looking up what movies were released
on Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day.
I know 50 Shades was released in Valentine's Day, which I have so many thoughts about that.
Oh, Crazy Stupid Love.
I
love Moment. I love her.
Yeah, I've heard that one's really, really good.
Yeah, a lot of these are like Failure to Launch, How to Be Single. Oh, Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh,
that was a
really?
Wow.
So
I think like people are expanding on Valentine's Day movies. Like it's not just romance movies coming out that day. It's like Sonic the Hedgehog coming out.
So many of these have Ashton Kutcher in them.
Really?
Like, so many of these on this list.
That's
amazing. And there's even a movie called Valentine's Day released on, guess what?
Valentine's Day.
Watch Call Me By Your Name. Everybody watch that.
That's our suggestion.
Timothy Chalamet.
Watch the last 3.5 minutes, but you also don't have to, like, if you don't want to be sad. But, watch it on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
This will be post. Watch it anyway.
It's a good movie.
It's not Valentine's Day or no. Watch it. It's great. But guys, thank you so much. I had so much fun.
I really
this was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Of course. So as I'm going to close out the show, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any suggestions, please let us know. My name is Ayinde. This has been Cinema Talk and Scene.